You're listening to the Vetted VA podcast, Your Journey Home. Nathan Nottingham is your host today, and he'll be chatting with Brandi Brickler.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Vetted VA Journey Home podcast. We are in our series where we are focusing on introducing you to some of the Vetted VA professionals that make this community what it is and drive us where we're going. So I'm super excited to have today Brandi Brickler. She's a dedicated mortgage broker affiliated with Edge Home Finance Corporation right now, and her NMLS ID number, I'm going to do it because it's compliant, is 1188579. So she's a U.S. Navy veteran and brings a unique perspective to her role, specializing in VA loans and advocating for veterans and active duty service members in multiple states. Brandi is also recognized as a Vetted VA professional, a designation that reflects her commitment to serving the veteran community with honor, with courage, commitment, and with a focus on their success. This rank and being a Vetted VA professional is awarded to professionals who have demonstrated extensive knowledge of the VA home loan. They've gone through massive amounts of training and have met rigorous performance standards for serving a community with heart. So she's licensed in multiple states, brings a range of mortgage services, including VA loans, but also jumbo loans, 203K loans, USDA loans, construction, reverse mortgages, you name it. Brandi's probably been participated in an origination of that loan. And she's committed to providing personalized effective solutions for clients across the U.S. Outside of that, Brandi is one of the professionals that I trust whenever I'm wondering, like, are we doing the right thing? Like, she will ask you questions that would make people squirm. She never skirts around the issue. She gets straight to the heart of it and says, is that how you really feel? Here's my question. I want to know where you're coming from. She has amazing family. She's raising her kids right, and they are going on to successful careers themselves already. And I'm super proud to have you here, Brandi. Thank you so much for being on this episode.
Wow, that was so fancy. Thank you so much. I'm really happy to be here.
Well, you're fantastic. So tell me, the VA home loan. When I first met you a few years ago, I think you've spent time in Hawaii. You're in Texas now, and you're like, man, I'm just passionate about this thing. And I was like, well, why? And you're like, well, I'm a veteran myself. And I went, it's awesome. Like, what did you do in the Navy? How did you get from Hawaii to Texas? What do you want to share with us?
Yeah, well, I joined the military when I was 20, and that was strictly for college. 100% was for college.
Oh.
I got accepted to college, went to college, and got there and realized that my parents did not fill out any FAFSA information. And they were like, it's okay, just sign right here on this promissory note and you can pay us back. And I was like, me personally? I don't think so. So I remembered being in a bar, meeting some Navy guys who were like, hey, would you like to, join the Navy? And I was like, absolutely not. I would never. And at that point in time, when I had to come back home and figure out what my next steps were, I remember those two guys, and I walked into their office and I was like, where do I sign? And I was like, how long do I have to sign to get that GI Bill? And they said 3 years. And I was totally prepared for 4, but yes, I will take that deal. So originally coming from Louisiana, I did that, left and sort of joined the military. You'll have to remind me where we were going with that, but.
Well, I mean, you're in the military. I'm sure life happens, family happens, all the things, and now you're in lending, and we run into each other here. Like, how'd you get started in mortgaging all the things?
I'm going to go back just a little bit because we talk about this a lot in TAPS class. When I got out of the military, when I got out of active duty, I got introduced to a guy from Mutual of Omaha, which they were like, would you like to sell insurance? And I was like, sure, that sounds great. I was actually going to be using my GI Bill to go to college. I had been going to college while I was active duty. And then when I got out, and it was always going to be focused in finance. And so my first job at Mutual of Omaha was like calling around and asking people if they understood their finances to buy life insurance. And I would help them do a budget. I would help them figure out how they could afford life insurance. And before I could actually get really started in the job, I met a boy in the Navy. We got married, we had a kid, and before I really got started in that job, we got PCS'd. We left. And then I realized I needed to get licensed in every single state that we went to. And I was like, wow, this could get kind of expensive, and, the network and things like that. So Um, I just focused on school instead of going back into that industry. But in the meantime, I volunteered with Navy Marine Corps Relief Society, doing microloans, just
Huh.
helping people budget and, giving loans to help somebody get from this payday to that payday without having to go to a payday lender. And all the
Yep.
while going to school for finance and specializing in real estate finance, through those PCSs. So that's kind of how I got there. And then I really didn't know what I wanted to do with that. But it was actually time to buy a house. And I was like, all right, let's finally do this. We've been here in Hawaii for a really long time. It's probably a good idea to purchase a house. And when I filled out the application and, talked with my loan officer, they said, "Why are you not working for us?" And I was like, I don't know. I really didn't know where I was taking this job, and they were like, "Well, we will train you and we will help you get started in the job." And this was a perfect little match in between my experience as a veteran, my degree, the helping people financially that I had been doing prior. So it was just a perfect mix. And it was finally nice to actually be a spouse and be able to, one, get a job and two, be paid, because that's pretty complicated. So I
Mm.
understood all of those things, and just seems like this is the community of people that I serve, because this is the community of people I sat in housing with and we talked about always purchasing that forever home. It's all we could
Mm.
talk about. Like, we're in housing and we're like, when I get my forever home, it's going to be here. I can't wait. We're going to purchase. And so it's really near and dear to my heart, because we lived and we talked about these things for years. And now I get to help people do that.
That's awesome. That makes a lot more sense too. I mean, when you're talking about this transitory lifestyle and you're like just dreaming about where can I finally put my roots down and let that one settle and grow deep, and having a hand in helping people do that. There's something really special about that when you help somebody land and they're like, I don't have to move. I'm not looking into moving anytime soon, whatever that looks like.
Now I have a different perspective on that, which is kind of cool,
Yeah.
because we talked about it and you kind of like have waited so long to like jump into home ownership. For a lot of
Hmm.
people, they are not the ones who buy at every duty station. There's a couple different people. So there's the people who buy at every different duty station and they've leveraged up, or sold and made some money. Or they're the people who are just so terrified to get into it that they wait until they are in their 40s and they're getting out. And at that time, they have dreamed so long about that first time, that first home, that forever home, like finally planting some roots somewhere, that I see them make a little bit of mistakes in, overdoing it, going for the big house, all the things. And now being on the other side of, retirement with a military spouse, I have a different perspective of what that looks like. And I can offer a little bit of advice, like, don't over improve that house. Don't buy the big house. Don't bank on this job. Most people are going to change jobs 2, 3 times after you get out of the military. So think about those things before you actually take this step. So I just have a unique perspective of having lived it all.
That's such great advice, especially in like, look, yes, and again, and I've clarified this in earlier episodes, but not being military, right? I did not go. I was the other route of it. I'm just used to changing jobs every few years and then finding one you can hang into, and that's a great like, hey, by the way, you're not gonna be in the same job for the next 20 years. That's kind of an old passe style of doing it. Like things change and opportunities arise, and you're like, oh, I better take that and make it better for my family. So.
Well, people
I love that
stumble when they get out of
example.
the military.
I'm sorry, say that again.
I said,
Sorry, I
well,
missed
people
that.
stumble a little bit when they get out of the military. Most of them have never worked in a civilian job field. You
Mm.
get into it and you're not exactly sure. It doesn't run the same way that the military does. And so you have to get into that comfortability. So I just like to help people make sure that they are doing the right thing with their finances when they get out, so they're prepared.
Let's let's talk about that for a little bit more then, because that's a unique perspective that not every professional can bring, and you've helped many people through that process and into that. What would be some of the first steps that somebody looking at a pending retirement, or they're almost done with their last contract? They're like, I'm on my way out. Yeah, I know we got steps and taps. Yeah, I know you got those, but come on, like it's personally like what should they do to prepare for whatever's coming next? What are some of your top things you share?
Well, I think that the most important thing is paying down debt, right? It's not getting
Hmm.
out, and you need to be able to pay down as much debt as possible. And I think one of the only ways that we were able to set ourselves financially up after retirement was purchasing that first house. That it gave us the equity that we needed to sort of walk out of the military with a paycheck, debt free, and be able to make our own choices.
Hmm.
So I like to share that. It's one, pay down the debt, don't come out with a lot of consumer debt so you can take the job that you want and accept the pay that you deserve and, just stand on 2 feet better.
So getting that debt load taken care of is huge.
Big deal.
I'm curious. You have, in my mind, you have you sit on a hierarchy of people I want on my team, especially ones that are not afraid of like challenging the question in front. But where does that come from? You have such passion that you're like you will fight for whatever you believe in, and I love that because that's something like I honor about you and I look for. Um, where does that come from in your life?
Thank you. It doesn't always come across that like to everyone.
Well,
But
sure, sure.
having served in the military, I was raised by a Puerto Rican grandma, and they do not hold back at all. And that's just the way my family is. I just think it's better to like go ahead and talk out front. There's no time to waste time. I don't want to say with niceties. However, let's get to the meat of the issue, right? That's
Mm.
how things work in the military, and it's how things work in a higher level of business. That's how I operate. And so let's don't skip to, let's skip to the good stuff.
Get to the actual meat of the matter and not just all the huggies and high fives. Um, how have you been able to utilize that then in fighting for your clients and some of the people that are utilizing you for financing? How does that translate into what you do daily?
Well, I just think it translates in that I am my client. I am a peer, right? We did
Mhm.
this together, right? These are when people. It's weird. I'm in a little town in Texas right now, and there's a lot of people where they have their cousins down the street, and their parents live right there, and they've always lived here, and they really don't have the same, I guess, life experience. So it's very weird because I've always lived around a military base. And
Mm.
so the experience is that the people that I lived around on the base in the military, living in housing or around housing, is that we all relied on one another. So we were each other's cousins, friends, babysitters, that kind of stuff. And so that is my community, and we make friends fast, and because people leave, right? And so
Mm.
you grab onto people very quickly, you make friends, your relationships are, I guess, shallow and wide, because
Mhm.
people are all over the place. And so you just really don't have time to play games and pretend that, we have forever to have this discussion or create this relationship. So I just like to be very clear in the way that I say, hey, look, this is how we're going to help get you qualified. This is your next steps. We're going to help move you through the process so you can get into home ownership, and, it'll be easy.
It'll be easy when you got the right team. Like some people probably heard that like that wasn't easy. It's like, yeah, well, when you work with somebody like Brandy and you got the right person on your team fighting for you, it's easier.
I hear
Um,
that. Yeah.
yeah, right.
Mhm.
So walk through with your experience in the VA loan.
Mhm.
Somebody sits down with you. They've never bought a house before. Maybe they've had a couple experiences and they want to use their VA benefits. What are some of the best things about the VA loan that you love sharing with a new somebody who's trying to use it for the first time or they've used it before and they didn't know? What are some of the go-tos that you're like, look, you have to, this is why this is the most powerful loan product for you?
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think the most important thing is leverage, right? I mean, you're getting into a
Mhm.
home with zero money down, and eventually you're going to pay down that balance of the home. It's also going to appreciate equity. It is really the quickest way for you to leverage up your finances. So
Yeah.
100%, I believe that. And so that is the number one thing that people need to understand. Now, I do also believe that people should be financially prepared to get into homeownership. So, while it is not necessarily based on your credit score or your debt to income ratio, my philosophy is really around someone's finances and making sure that they're prepared and that they're better going into home ownership than to rather like force them into home ownership and then hope that they float, right? We just want to make sure that they do better. So there's a lot of different philosophies around that. My personal philosophy is I'm going to help coach you up into, increasing your credit score, having a better interest rate, making sure that you're set up and that you're prepared. Even if you have a down payment, sometimes it's about talking to you about not putting that down payment down and actually
Mhm.
saving that for those things that come up that kind of put you into financial ruin as a homeowner.
Cash on hand is it's interesting enough, and you've spoken about this. It gets you as well as it does me. The Ramseys of the world who say the VA loan is a negative or a, and we've talked about this ad nauseum before. But having cash on hand when you buy a house first time, second time, third time is one of the most powerful things you can do to maintain and ensure that you will maintain and keep that house
Mhm.
instead of putting it into all the entire property. I'm on my third home, and every single time, no matter how hard I've planned and thought I've inspected everything, I've needed cash on hand within the first 6 months of buying that house because something needs to be fixed or breaks or
Mhm.
name it, right? So one of the most powerful things about the VA loan, as you pointed out, is 100% financing without negatively impacting the interest rate. And in many points, actually, the VA gets a better interest rate because of the Veterans Administration's backing a quarter of that loan product. It's a huge win, a huge win. So, Brandy, what's a memorable loan program or what's a memorable transaction you've been involved in that was we all have these, right? We look back at our longevity in the industry and go, oh man, I will never forget, that one and why. What's a memorable one and why?
I would say that I've been doing this for over a decade now, and every transaction is goes into the encyclopedia sort of memory bank of
Mm,
they're all pretty special. But I mean, there's a couple of them that really stick out to me. That I was proud in the moment. Like now it's kind of a normal thing, but like back in the day, we had some regulations around the VA loan that didn't allow for non-permitted additions, which is pretty common in Hawaii, right? Where I cut my teeth in the business. And so, actually using those guidelines to get around at it, using that value in valuing the home from the appraisal and being able to counter them and say, hey, look, we just don't want that room that's not permitted to be added into the value. And we're still going to have a good appraisal. So, that was
mm,
some of my first things. There was actually a blog that I did back in Hawaii that was such a common blog. That's where I got a lot of my business from, was actually talking about this one particular issue that was very common.
mm,
And then later the $1.4 million VA loan where the buyer had to come out of pocket zero, which was awesome. And even some that didn't turn out successful, where, I
mm,
had a client who was really upset about giving me more bank statements. And so I was like, well, clearly I'm not being clear in my communication. But at some point I said to the client, I was like, you know what, then maybe I'm not the right person for you. So there's the fails, there's the big successes, and I keep all of them pretty special in how I do my business. Keep them in my
yeah.
memory bank so they add to how I communicate with clients and how I actually get through the process.
You mentioned the bank statement one, which is actually a really good one. How would you, somebody listening to this interview, this podcast, or watching it, and they're like, yeah. It's super embarrassing. Like they just want to see every financial thing. Like how can you explain that to set that appropriately for whomever's listening or watching this now? Like why in the world do we ask so many detailed questions?
That is definitely something that I can feel someone being nervous on the other side of the
Mm.
phone, or I paid everything and yes ma'am and can I, and I'm like, okay, let's stop, right? I'm going to tell you, I'm going to be real clear with you. I have had a 542 credit score. I have
Mm.
not had paid my bills on time. I have been followed around by some Comcast equipment that I didn't return from a PCS or something, that hit my credit.
Yes.
I've done the things, right? I've been an E1 and E2 and E3 in the military. I've made all the mistakes. So I'm not judging, right? And so I like to help my clients by helping them feel comfortable that I sat exactly where they are. I was super
Mm.
nervous walking in to get my first pre-qualification. I was super nervous about somebody looking at my bank statements as well. Maybe they were going to be judging me, but the reality of the situation is that I'm not judging you on how much you spend at McDonald's. I am looking at your finances to make sure that you can afford the mortgage. So that's really it. We have a few guidelines, and if I see some things that sort of you're not qualified, then we're going to work through those, and we're going to start a long-term relationship where you can lean on me and ask me, hey, is this what I need to do to get to where I want to be a homeowner?
Mhm.
And that's where we start that process. Sometimes, it's immediate, you get pre-qualified and you can get into a house in 30 days. And sometimes I talk to people for I don't know, a couple years, you know? Oh, I
Yeah.
was gonna say, I was thinking about one guy in particular that I helped. He came to me with a really bad credit score and was really upset because he had divorced and there was a cell phone bill for like $742. And he was mad about it. They were in the angry divorce stage of, like, I'm mad about this. This is her debt. And at that time, I was like, you could pay the debt and be mad. You could not pay the debt and be mad, or you could pay the debt and be a homeowner. And
Mm.
to date, I've helped him purchase two homes. So he has a rental now and he lives, and we're working on getting him qualified next year for his third purchase. So just the flexibility, the amazing things that you can do when I can relate to them and say, hey, look, I've been there, right?
Yeah. Been there. That is such an important point. In even to the point I share, and I was embarrassed by this for a number of years, but I took a Chapter 7 bankruptcy coming out of, I started lending in '07 and I like overextended myself. Not on my house. I tried to open another business with a partner and that failed. And I found myself just in debts that in 2012, I took a Chapter 7 bankruptcy and I share that now openly because even those in the industry, like if we don't have scars personally, how much should you trust us? Like if you're perfect walking around, like I trust people that can say, "Oh yeah, you see that scar right down that arm? Yeah, that one hurt. Let me tell you how that happened. Let me tell you how we got back from it." Being able to do that, keep that house, but then also talk about, yeah, the next house I bought, I totally understood what I was doing right the next time, and here's why I'm telling you this is a good idea, not and don't do that, do this, and sharing that personal story really does help. Um,
The last loan that I closed was personally, I
mhm.
mean, there was so much sharing going on. I was contacted by a veteran who, she had a little PTSD. She was 100% disabled and in the middle of a very contentious divorce. And really the only reason why she stayed with me is because I was able, look, I just did this 2 years ago. I'm recently divorced. She needed to do a cash out refinance to pay equity out to the ex-husband. And we're in Texas, which has some unique problems with that, right? So we were
Yes.
able to get through those things, but just connecting with her on that level, she just called me 2 days ago and was finally like, I can't even tell you how I appreciate you sharing with me. That allowed me to feel comfortable with you walking me through this process, because there was plenty of times where she was questioning me.
And rightly so, right? Trust but verify, and they do. And
I love
and
that.
if we're offended by that, then we might not be in the right the right business. We should be questioned regularly, right? We're helping people make a massive decision that has
That's
financial
right.
longevity to their life. It's one that I think I remember buying my first home, um, and I did it on an 80/20, 100% financing, 2006, when these things happened a lot. And for all the wrong reasons. Look, 100% financing is fantastic with the VA loan. Be really careful when you do it any other way.
Right.
The USDA and VA loan, fantastic. Taking like 2 to 3 mortgages to get it done on one transaction, like I did,
Mhm.
that's a dangerous game. So let's not do that anymore.
Yeah.
But looking forward, like I bought that house and I was able to sell that house and I got $0 in equity out of it, but I didn't lose it. And so I knew how to buy the next
Yeah.
house, right? And it was like, okay, that was a costly mistake, but I got it.
Mhm.
Um, Learning how to do that and learning and understanding when you buy a home, you have so much more hope and for your family. Like I've got teenage kids, and this house we bought in Texas, I got in at a good spot. We knew what we wanted to do with it, and now we're enjoying both paying it down and getting the equity, but also it was enough area where our vision was to help my parents build a retirement home. And that's a whole plan I'm going through now. So now it's easier to talk to people and go, I want to build a house. I'm like, okay, I got some
Let's talk
stories to
about
tell
this.
you. Like, hold up, like let's get real honest about this.
Yeah.
You need those stories. What what is it when you look at your business and your drive and your passion? Where do you think you sit in a unique situation? There's loan officers everywhere. Like,
Mm.
what is different about Brandy that makes people go, yeah? I mean, you share your passion, you share your heart, you share your experiences. Is there
Yeah.
anything else? Is there something that you bring to the table that you think is way different?
Well, I mean, I think that in the industry as a whole, I've seen it change over the last few years. And there have been a lot of people who got into the industry who were convinced that this job was a sales position, that they
Mm,
believed that, you know, in our offices, we get out and they're like, go sell somebody a mortgage. And I had a mentor when I first got in the business and she was like, if I thought I was a salesperson, I would, that is just not something that I care for. So,
mm,
um, I don't believe that I'm selling anybody anything. I do believe that I am helping someone get into the biggest purchase of their life, which I hold very important, that I'm helping someone make a good decision. And that I come from the same unique experience that they do. They have lived all over the world. They need to settle down. They need to purchase a home. They're eventually going to sell those homes. So I just come at it with one, I'm not a salesperson. That's not what I care about. That's not what drives me. I'm not a numbers for myself person. I am a numbers for your finances person. So that's, I feel like, what makes me a little bit unique in the industry, because it has gotten to be with people who can't even manage their own finances are convincing
mhm.
you that you need to flip into or buy a couple of investment properties.
I agree with that. Being that mentor, that consultant is huge, and that's a warning sign. That's a red flag, honestly. If you're having a conversation with a mortgage person and they make it sound so super easy and don't give you any back information, like what are you doing? Like, I don't want to buy a car. I don't know
Education
why
is
this is.
important. Yeah, education
Yeah.
is important. I mean, you only do this how many times in your life? You do this like 2 to 3 times maybe in your whole life. And so
Mm,
even if you've done it 3 times, it's still kind of new and things have changed. We get a lot of people who are like, I never had to pay closing costs when I bought 5 years ago. Well, the lending environment was a little bit different then. So many people say, I did this the last time I purchased. Well, it's new. So I'm the person that's
mm.
going to keep you informed about the process and sort of, I'm going to fully explain why you didn't pay closing costs 5 years ago and why you are paying closing costs now. You're going to fully understand that with me.
That's right. uh, you are a fantastic educator. I think that's one thing I've enjoyed. You've done some lives. If anybody's looking or wondering, hop on YouTube. You'll find Veta VA. You'll find Brandy on some lives. You'll also find her teaching some courses and co-teaching. And you're doing more teaching with us, which I super appreciate. More of that's coming out in 2025. The concept there of just educating over selling is so important because I know your heart, like even if they don't choose you, at least you've given them the best wisdom you can, so they're going to be successful. There's a lot out there. Um, we just hope you'll choose Brandi because she's going to rock it for you.
When you
What else?
I want to say,
Sorry,
like,
go ahead.
when you leave the base, there's like a ton of like car dealerships that are just about outside of every base. And everyone, you're not a protected class. You are a target. You're a target,
Hmm.
right? And so I've had that experience that nobody's my target.
Mm, that's well said. Well said. They are. I wish and I hope the veterans and active duty service members and their families here understand that like the veteran status is more of it's easy to find and it's easy to target them with offers and things that just sound too good to be true.
Right.
And they often are. And
Yeah.
so Brandi, what is as we kind of wrap up, what's something you would share with the community that's just on your mind or something that you would want them to hear from you?
Yeah, well, I mean, the reason why I joined this community, what has it been, like 4 years? I
Almost
don't
four
remember.
years. Hmm.
Almost 4 years. The reason why I joined Vetted VA in the first place is because this organization is not right. We don't work together. We're not the same company. We are all just a group of passionate individuals who want to make sure that the correct information is out about the VA loan, right? And so that's why I'm super passionate about being in the group in the first place, is because I'm not doing it for me. I'm doing it for my veteran peers. And I want to make sure that the correct information that's getting out there, when they have a problem, they come to us, we answer it. And so that's what's really important to me, and why I continue to be in the group is because it's not selfish. It's very selfless of us to volunteer a lot of time. We actually spend a lot of time,
Hmm.
in meetings, in planning, in, preparing for the future, in getting education together, in answering the questions on every 8 days where our groups are on duty. And we spend a lot of time there because we all have a passion for the same thing, which is making sure that information is out to veterans and it's accurate.
Absolutely. I love that. Well, thank you so much for hopping on this episode with me, for letting us talk about you. Something we don't do a lot in Veta VA. We are very much like a non-solicitation, but I really think it's important that the people get to learn about our veteran or our Veta VA professionals in the veteran and active duty services and community that we're serving. A lot of your contact information will be found in the show notes. You can find Brandi on vetava.com. You can find Brandi on brandibrickler.com. It'll take you to her website and her contact. And if anything, I will say she will never lie to you. She will always love you enough to be very honest, just like her grandmother was. Like she's going to cut straight to the core of it. Like, let's get into it. I love you enough just to dive in. So let's go.
Yeah.
So thank you so much, Brandi. I really appreciate you. I appreciate all the time and effort, energy you serve this community with us. And you are a major reason we are and have reached as far as we have and continue to do so. So thank you for everything you do.
Thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you for listening to the VVA podcast, Your Journey Home. We hope this information has been helpful, enjoyable, engaging, supportive. But here's the biggest call to action for you. If you are a veteran, a service member, a family member of the same, and you have earned or have access to the VA home loan eligibility and have questions, please feel free to join us at VetaVA on Facebook. Go to facebook.com, search for the VetaVA group, and you'll find it. Answer some of the questions to enter, and once you do that, you're good to go. If you're a professional, a real estate agent, lender, insurance agent, you know the drill. Well, as a professional, we'd love to have you join the professionals only group. We do all the same information, but at a little bit different scope because, well, of how you're coming into that information to support yourself and the other consumers that you work with. So please join VetaVA on Facebook or VetaVA for Professionals on Facebook. Follow us on TikTok, wherever you can find it. And as always, all the white papers, the resources, the documents, and the training, the free training courses are available at vetava.com. You'll find them all there. If you have any questions, please do not hesitate to reach out to us. My email is nathan@vettedva.com. I'm the COO, and I'm ready to help. Glad you tuned in for this episode, and looking forward to bringing you the next one. Take care.